Alright, we are having a conversation on these three top stories today. The first being number 2 or nothing. The wise Oburu Odinga, who has now stepped up as the party leader of the ODM Party, has made shocking waves in the Kenyan political scene with the stance of the ODM Party in 2027, declaring that they are not going to settle for anything short than number 2. Will the suitors fold or will they persist? We cover that story as our main story today. But after that, we take a look at strategy or fear dressed in strategy, as Gachagua and Kalonzo now promises an alliance that will deliver 12 million votes in the 2027 presidential elections. The DCP party that is affiliated to Honorable Gachagua keeps withdrawing its candidates from the test run, that is the by-election set for the 27th November 2025. So is this fear or is this strategy? We will finish this episode with a look at no congratulatory messages. Now Samia Suluhu Hassan is having her third day in office as the president-elect of the Republic of Tanzania, and no congratulatory message from the East African community or from the Africa continent. Is the continent ravishing against the lady Honorable Samia Suluhu Hassan? I'm your host Ogola, and this is the Civic Lens. Now let's start with this story of whether this is strategy or this is surrender. You see, Kalonzo Musyoka and Honorable Rigathi Gachagua were few days ago at Thika Greens in Murang'a, and while they were attending this particular meeting, they declared that they intend to come up with something called the Mount Kenya South Agreement. This Mount Kenya South Agreement is an alliance of the Akamba Nation and the Agikuyu Nation come 2027 elections. And in this alliance, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is supposed to deliver 4 million votes from the Eastern Kamba region, and Honorable Rigathi Gachagua is supposed to deliver 8 million votes from the Mount Kenya region, making a total of 12 million block votes. They hope that when these block votes will have been arrived at, then the presidential election of 2027 will be determined by them, being Kalonzo and Rigathi Gachagua. But as they are doing this consolidation and getting into these arrangements of bringing the Kamba Nation together with the Gikuyu Nation to have a 12 million block, the test run is set for the 27th of November this year. And the test run is the by-elections, the 24 by-elections that are being witnessed across the nation. Out of these 24 by-elections, the DCP party have since now withdrawn all its candidates in the constituency positions, safe for Magarini constituency, and that's where our analysis begins. So let's start from the beginning. When the by-elections were declared, different political parties affiliated themselves differently with their regions. For the ODM party, for example, Magarini was their region again to try and prove their massive support that they have always enjoyed from the coastal side. Kasipul was another ground that was being left by an ODM candidate, and they hoped and are still hoping to fill a candidate in that region. And Ugunja. So these three spots, being Magarini, Kasipul, and Ugunja, were the strongholds, or are still, hopefully, the strongholds of the ODM party ahead of the 24 by-elections that are set to be held November this month on the 27th date. The UDA party, on the other hand, also had strongholds. This was the Mbeere North, which is highly contested between the UDA candidate Leonard Muriuki and also the Chama cha Kazi candidate Honorable Duncan Mbui, and also the third one is the Democratic Party candidate Newton Karish, that are also contesting in that region. But the UDA party had the Mbeere region as one of the places where they had put their candidate. Another place was Banisa constituency, far off in Mandera, where now the candidate, and we detailed here the Civic Lens, was facing some allegations of dual citizenship and being actually alleged that he's a foreigner being fronted in that particular seat. So that was another spot for the UDA party, Banisa constituency. And then the third one is Malava, that is hugely contested. Yeah, the Malava constituency, and we'll come back at these particular strongholds of this parties and why we are talking about them. And then there was the new party in town that had registered its offices across the border as far off as Seattle in the United States of America, and now has marshaled its support around the mountain area, the Democratic for Citizens Party that's affiliated to Rigathi Gachagua. This particular party also had 3 strong candidates when the by-election were announced at first. One was the very Banisa constituency in Mandera, where UDA is fronting a candidate. 2 is the Magarini constituency deep down in the coastal area, where the ODM Party is also fronting a candidate. And 3 was then the Mbeere North, which was also being contested by UDA. So DCP was going against UDA in 2 strongholds and going against ODM in 1 stronghold. Now let's fact check right now as we do this episode which particular parties are still holding where. For the ODM party, they still have a candidate in Kasipul, that is being the Boyd Were, son of Ongondo Were, who is facing Aroko and is facing Riaga alongside other people in the Kasipul area. And now with the demise of Raila Odinga, is finding the ground a little bit very hard to very resistant to the ODM party right now. So the ODM party is still fronting their candidate in Kasipul, nothing has changed. In Ugunja, they still have a candidate, nothing has changed. In Magarini, they still have a candidate, nothing has changed. So they are facing the test run of 27th this month with their candidates stocked in their strongholds, and they are testing waters with these candidates to see how the ground are going to receive them come 2027. The UDA party, on the other hand, is also still strong in its candidature. When you look at Mbeere North, Leonard Muriuki is still there. You look at Banisa constituency, Honorable Mali Masan, who is facing these allegations of dual citizenship or no citizenship at all, is still in that race. And if you take a look at Malava constituency, they still have Ndakwa very strong on the ground. So the UDA party has also still kept its ground with its candidates testing the ground ahead of 27th this month by election. So I'm singling out just the test on constituency, and I will explain later for a reason. And then let's look at the DCP party that had its candidates in 3 constituencies. Now the DCP candidate in Banisa has since been bought by the UDA party and is not there anymore. The DCP party in Malava, Edgar, has bowed his knees for Honorable Panyako and has gotten in a union with the DAP party to front one candidate as the united opposition candidate in that region. And if you look at Mbeere North, DCP have sacrificed Duncan Mbui, who has now since joined the Chama cha Kazi party to now unite itself with the Democratic Party of Justin Muturi to front one candidate from the united opposition come 2027. So there are 2 lenses to this. For one, you can say that the DCP party is so thoughtful of the united opposition that it puts its interest secondary when it comes to the general interest of the united opposition, and at that paints the DCP party perhaps good in the image of people who look at it like that it has weighed the strength of its other co-officials in the Mbeere North area, they weighed the strength of its other co-officials in the Malava area, and has weighed it against its own strength in those regions, and has decided that what is good not for the party but for the united opposition as a coalition is not to front a candidate in those areas. I just don't know what kind of parties or what kind of principles goes into a party that a party might think beyond itself to support a coalition at its own expense. But that is how it looks like right now, that if that is what they are doing, they are weighing the interest of the other officials in the united opposition, then it's a good thing. But then there is also another angle to it. Another angle is what the DCP party has been previously blamed of, that this party cannot survive beyond the mountain region, and this party now has become just a reserve of the mountain region. But even if it's a reserve of the mountain region, then why did it not front a candidate from Mbeere North, which is still in the mountain area? And for this particular outlook, you'd see that perhaps the DCP party is in fear right now to lose. This is very categorical. In fear to lose. They are not hoping to win because they know they can win or lose, but they're in fear to lose more than they are looking forward to win. And why would the DCP party fear to lose than it would appreciate to win? This is the reason. This is the new party in town. And the person championing this new party in town is someone who is been rejected as a stone from the builders. Now he wants to build his own cornerstone from the mountain area. And while building this particular cornerstone from the mountain area, there is no room for error at all. Like, he's not plotting for error in any of his plans. So errors is not something that he wants to do, and that's a very fearful, or rather a walk on the glass kind of approach to politics. Because if you look at the position of the DCP party, it's a young party that was started by a deputy president that was ousted from power. So this deputy president wants to regain more power for his region, to have a good bargaining power come 2027. So going into 27th by elections without being sure of whether he's going to win or not paints the party very badly if he loses. And so, viewed against the united opposition's interest, it serves the party leader's interest twice. Gachagua looks good in the image of the other officials when he concedes in a region like in Malava and in Mbeere North, because then it seems that he is a team player. But it also serves his personal interest, that it takes away the possible embarrassment of this new party losing a by-election, yet the principle is consolidating support for the 2027 main elections. So these particular by-elections for Rigathi Gachagua specifically, do not serve a best interest for him, mostly when he's going against the UDA party, like in Mbeere North, where state resources are actually being used to actually support the candidate for the government. This is what's going to happen. If he wins the Mbeere North by-election through DP Muturi, he takes credits that he actually saw that they were strong together as a coalition, and so he surrendered his interest to DP Muturi, and as a result they have won. If he loses through the Democratic Party in Mbeere North, he still takes credit. He says DCP party did not front a candidate and it was the other officials' candidate that was weak, that's why they lost. So it's clean either way. Malava, the same thing. If they win through the DAP Kenya party, which is most likely that the DAP Kenya party might win that particular by-election, if they win, he will take credit that the united opposition came together and won with the Eugene Wamalwa's party there. If they lose, he will have Eugene Wamalwa to blame, saying they had Edgar, who was strong in the ground, but then another official requested that they hand over that region to them and they have lost. So he remains clean either way. The main test is now in Magarini for the DCP party, because here they are going against the predominant ODM candidate. But the advantage they have is that the current candidate that is going for this particular seat in Magarini under the UDA party ticket is the individual that had gone to court previously, all the way to the Supreme Court, and had had the particular elections of Magarini nullified. So Karisa Kenga, who had these particular elections nullified, is now under the DCP ticket to regain his long lost glory that he has since regained through the court system. So this might work so much in favor of the DCP party, because the candidate is already really the winner of that particular by-elections, but is going against a very long-serving member of parliament who has been in the ODM party for some time, and they are going or contesting in the backyard of the ODM party. With the sympathies of the loss of Raila Odinga, Magarini might not be an easy sway for the DCP party either way. So as we are looking for the 2027 main elections, we are also seeing instances of fear being dressed in strategy in the main test run election, which would have really established whether these parties are strong individually without coalitions or not. Now let's take a look at the second story, which is our main story today. And this is very interesting, the ultimatum that Oburu Dinga has now given with the ODM party. Now we have just discussed the ODM party fronting a candidate in Magarini constituency, in Kasipul and in Ugunja. Now the new party leader, who was having an interview sometimes back with the NTV, an exclusive interview, declared succinctly that they are not going for anything short than the number 2 position. Now, what is the implication of this statement in the Kenyan political scene? And we start from the beginning. The ODM party right now is a piece of land that almost all investors want, and these investors are all going to the bank to have a charge on this piece of land, and they want to buy this piece of land so quick so that there is no other investor that comes and buys this piece of land. And as people are trying to decide which part of investor is going to have this piece of land, the owner, the vendor of the piece of land himself, increasingly every single day increasingly puts new demands on this new piece of land, and that new demand arrived in some few hours to the Kenyan political scene as a shock when Oburu Odinga declared that the party will go for nothing other than number 1 or number 2 in the 2027 by-elections. So where does this put Kindiki really, if now the ODM party has declared that they are going for number 2 position if they decide to do that with UDA? Or where does this put Ruto's ambitions if he did not intend to have a number 2 coming from ODM and he still wants ODM in his backyard? The ODM party leader, the wise Oburu Odinga, whose rise to power we will detail in a later episode, talked not only in line of Ruto, but in line of everyone else. He said that he sees Matiang'i as a very honest civil servant, but Matiang'i lacks politics in him. The same sentiments he had for Maraga, who he said is a good judge, but lacks politics in him. For Kalonzo, he said Kalonzo has a good block, but they will not support Kalonzo if Kalonzo is not in their formation. For Rigathi Gachagua, he said he knows very little of him. Now, for William Ruto, he has said that if they are not shortchanged, then he does not see any problem with the ODM party working with William Ruto post 2027. But for this working environment, he has categorically said that the ODM party will be in government, but will not take anything less than number 2 while in that government. And we detail to you the political implications of this. This statement first disquietens Kindiki Kithure than anyone else, because with the ODM party making that particular declaration and Ruto banking on the ODM party support for 2027 by-elections, it would be so easy to sacrifice Kindiki than the voting bloc of the ODM community. And so that particular statement settles or unsettles Kindiki. Rather, Kindiki would have now to join the ODM party and contest with Gladys Wanga and the other likes within the ODM party for the number 2 position, or forget the number 2 position at all if Ruto decides to go that way. But what is the implication of this for Ruto's politics? For Ruto's politics, there's a lot of interest now ahead of 2027. First, there's the interest of bringing all the families together, previously families that have ruled this nation, so that he has support of the then dynasties that he previously contested. So the first strategy for Ruto is to have the Moi, Kenyatta, Oginga, if preferably even the Kibaki, behind him, supporting him for the 2027 race. Another thing that Ruto is hugely banking on is to demystify the Mount Kenya myth, to have support of the entire nation so that he does not need Mount Kenya come 2027. But even while at that, he's still luring certain members of the Mount Kenya to divide that vote if possible. Then the third problem Ruto has is the youth. Now, in all this particular problem, if Ruto can consolidate the families, then Ruto can consolidate the entire nation without requiring the mountain region. And Ruto can somehow penetrate some 20 or 30% vote of the young population. Then Ruto does not need either Rigathi Gachagua or Kindiki. Ruto will throw them under the bus so quick to consolidate a win for the ODM side. And we had detailed this sometimes back as 3 or 2 months ago when we started, even before Raila Odinga passed on, that with the arrangement that came with Raila getting into agreement with Ruto, something was imminent that if the agreement was to subsist beyond 2027, then the ODM party was going to ask for number 2. And in that episode, which you can find here at the Civic Lens, we even prophesied who that number 2 would be. And from the way things are happening right now, it's most likely that our prophecy is coming true, that if this is the arrangement Oburu is pushing for, then even the individual Oburu is pushing for is already curated within the ODM power structure, leaving no one else other than Gladys Wanga to become that number 2 in 2027. And this particular politics will play a good optics for Ruto, having a female vice president who comes from the Nyanza backyard and rallying against the entire Mount Kenya region with the country joining together. We will go back to the narrative of 41 against 1 that was witnessed in 2007 with the 2027 by-election. So we are yet to see really whether the united opposition will react to the ODM statement as they woo the UDM as one of the suitors, or whether now the Wiper Party will still woo the ODM Party as a suitor, or whether this race is left for the UDA Party with all the suitors fleeing and the UDA Party remaining as the only suitor that will woo the ODM Party ahead of the 2027 by-elections. We finish quickly with just a statement that since Samia Hassan took power as the new president of Tanzania, the East African community has not sent any congratulatory message except for the president of Somalia, who has since congratulated Ms. Samia Hassan, and the AU chairperson was also congratulated and noted the results from Tanzania. But from the East African community, President Ruto, who is the president of Jumia, East Africa, Makongomano, whatever, East Africa, has not sent any message. Museveni, none. We have not seen any from the South Sudan part. We have not seen any from Ethiopia, from Burundi, from Rwanda. So we hope to see if they will send congratulatory messages. And even from the entire African Union, other than the African Union itself, from the individual countries. The message that this sends is that you might get a win, but without that particular applause and without that particular recognition of your government, it makes it very, very hard to navigate with your neighbors or to navigate globally. But the East African community and their response to what has happened in Sudan and in Tanzania is an episode that we will put for you in detail here at the Civic Lens.